Hey TNA fans, don't forget, if you enjoyed this week's episode and want to hear the full conversation, including Fans Talk TNA Unlocked, click the big green button on fanstalktna.com and pledge $3 a month or more. Unlocked is our post show. It's a little bit of bonus content for those who help keep this show funded. On this week's edition, Nick and I stuck around for an additional 10 minutes to talk TNA's ranking system. We compared ours rankings to their rankings to see which one made more sense. And we also talked about the tag team division. We got a great question from Craig Walsh over on YouTube about how to make the tag team division more relevant. So we put some ideas together. Can't swing $3? Pledge at least $1 and you'll get early access to content just like this. Plus, access to some behind-the-scenes looks at how we do the show. Every little bit will help keep this conversation going each and every week. Now, here's Fans Talk TNA episode 19. From the Fans Talk Wrestling family at fanstalkwrestling.com, this is Fans Talk TNA. It's a weekly conversation about what's going on in the world of TNA and Impact Wrestling. This episode 19 was brought to you by the support of listeners just like you. My name is Garvin. I'm once again joined by Nick. Say hello, Nick.
Hi, Garvin.
And tonight we're going to talk about the final matches of Samoa Joe's TNA career, whether or not Taryn Terell versus Awesome Kong would be as good as we're hoping, and another screwy finish ends a TNA title match. Is it time for TNA to use a different script? All that and the week that was on Impact Wrestling. Before we begin, some shout-outs. Shout-outs to @TrueLegend21, Steven Sterling, the Count of Incognito, Jesse Overbite, Antonio, Prack72, Lewis Harris, and Kyle Williamson for continuing the conversation through comments over Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube this week. You can also continue the conversations now on fanstalktna.com. We brought comments back to the week for all podcast episodes. Some things that you guys said about last week's conversation. @TrueLegend said, Grado was alright, but the big part of the night was Drew busting low-key upside his head and splitting him open. Yeah, just looking back at that entire segment in the match, anything I think Grado would have done would have been overshadowed by Drew Galloway's debut. I think just that moment and how he hit low-key and busted him open, I think that would have overshadowed anything that would have taken place.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, just simply given the nature of who Grado is and who Galloway is, yeah.
Yeah. Steven Sterling said, this Friday's Impact is historical. And he was talking about last week's Impact. He said, Impact is historical. 2 black wrestlers are in the main event. When was the last time WWE did that? That's an interesting piece because I didn't even think about it. This is the thing that we hear a whole lot about WWE as far as like this racial divide where, black wrestlers and Latino wrestlers, they aren't given the same opportunities as they could get in the indies or really anywhere else for that matter. So, but for TNA to do it and not even build it up, I think means a lot more to me because I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about, this is a big deal because Bobby Lashley and MVP are both black and they're going for the top title. For me, it was like, this story totally makes sense and I'm glad that MVP is finally getting that shot against Lashley. The story makes total sense. I'm into it. So I don't know, Nick, what do you think about this whole idea? Do you think that we should be making a big deal out of this?
A big deal? No. It's certainly worthy of note. I really can't remember the last time it's happened, unless the Dudleys faced off against a black tag team at some point in TNA. I can't think of one. So yeah, it's definitely something interesting to make note of. But I feel like we're past a point where we need to make a big deal out of wrestling overcoming the whole racist stereotype.
Well, we should be past that point. But, like Sterling says, I mean, it's a thing where we don't see stuff like that on mainstream TV for whatever reason. And by mainstream, I mean the WWE, I don't think they'll ever be in a spot to really put two guys of a mixed race in there.
Sure. But I mean, we've already gotten the big,
sure,
I guess you can call them milestones, like the first black world heavyweight champion and whatnot. So
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if we should make a big deal of it. I mean, this all seemed to work very organically. It makes sense, and it was a great story. So yeah, I think overall, looking at it as a historical thing, I think puts the focus on maybe TNA trying to make a statement in the business versus, hey, these are our two top wrestlers, and they're both fantastic, and they're fighting for the top title. So
Sure.
The Count of Incognito said, I think Gail is a perfect piece to the triple threat here, as far as with Kong and Taryn. Gail's series of matches with her made Kong in TNA, and she did the same with Taryn. She fits right into the story, besides the fact that the match they eventually have will ultimately be better with her involved. What do you think about that? Do you think that Gail has to be involved in the Taryn versus Awesome Kong feud to make it worthwhile?
I don't, and that's not ignoring what she's done with Kong in the past. See, the problem is if Gail Kim gets involved, that's going to completely overshadow Taryn. And again, like I pointed out last week, Taryn's your champion. She cannot be overshadowed. If Kong dominates her and takes the title, that's one thing. But if there's a feud going on that completely supersedes a title feud, that's a problem. So I have no problem with Gail fighting Kong, just not on Taryn Terrell's time.
Yeah, it does seem odd, just the idea that Gail has to fit in there for that to be better. And I don't know if it would be better. I think it would be good, for sure, to have a triple threat between the three. But the idea that Gail being involved would make the feud better, I think is... it's just too early to call. Like, I want to see what Taryn can do against Kong. So far, we haven't seen her be able to accomplish much. So to, put Gail in there, it's basically conceding that Taryn can't hold her own. And I don't want to, I don't want to see that just yet. So yeah, I think the idea of a triple threat makes a lot of sense and is cool. But I think we need to see that one-on-one sooner than later, between Taryn and Kong.
Yeah, hold that off until Taryn establishes herself as a legitimate threat to Kong.
All right, Jesse Overbite said last week at the 18-minute mark when grades are being given, the hosts state that he is still willing to watch it every week. What does that even mean? Are you being forced to watch Impact every week? Is the current product that tough to watch? Out of context, I could totally get how you could say that. And he's referring to me. This is something that I said. But what I was saying was I was defending why I wasn't willing to give TNA an A yet. I'm not willing to, because to me, going from a 1-star to a 5-star, there's not a lot of room in between. So, with this, we're going from an A to an F. So to me, A is perfect. A+ is like the best thing I've ever seen. So the idea of just throwing A's around, I'm not willing to do that. I'm still really into the product. I enjoy what TNA is doing, but to give them an A is something I'm not willing to do just yet. Nothing has blown my mind enough to grant that grade.
Yeah, that's why I'm not that huge of a fan of giving stars or grades or rankings to a show, just given that there's all kinds of criteria by which you can judge. And it's also completely arbitrary. Two people can give two wildly varying grades just given what they like on the same show. So until we actually do come up with an objective, quantifiable ranking system that everybody agrees on, which will never happen, I just don't like giving grades.
Yeah, rankings is hard for that very reason, but we'll bring that back up once we talk about that again. All right, so we do have quite a few comments for the TNA Hall of Fame. I think we're gonna skip that this week, at least on the free portion of the show. We'll move that into today's unlocked conversation. So if you're a paid member of the FTW community, only costs $3 a month, you can access that conversation. So that should be a lot of fun. But let's skip that. Let's talk right now about the week that was in TNA. Nick, on this week's Impact, what worked for you?
Namely, Aries versus Joe. That whole match and segment was pretty great from both guys. And specifically after the match, when Low-Key tried to put Aries to the table and the table didn't give way, and Joe hit that jumping senton from the mat. That's impressive. Like, no matter how long you've been watching Joe in action, no matter how much you've seen that his weight isn't that big of a hindrance to him, that was still really impressive to watch him clear that table and come back down again. And yeah, just for me, another thing that I thought really worked was Robbie E. His antics, his whole gimmick during that entire match, just how over the top he was when he beat Brooke. That was a pretty hilarious moment when he was carrying DJZ on his shoulder and running around the ring.
Right.
I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm still entertained by that. It's not what I'm really wanting at this point, though, I think. You know, overall, we had, I want to say 2 video packages of Robbie E about how he was going to turn a corner and how this was going to be his year. And it looked like they were pushing him for a more serious character. And that has tainted my opinion of Robbie E right now, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to see something different from Robbie E, but it's like we got that and then we've moved on. We're back to square one with him. So I don't know, like, I'm still entertained by Robbie E, but part of me is just wanting that extra story, that next direction for him.
Yeah, I wish they would get back in the tag title picture. I hope they can find an avenue back to that point pretty soon.
Your comment about Aries versus Joe, I'm in agreement. I thought it was a fantastic match. The post match where they tried to put him through the table and Joe had to make that last minute move. I don't even think anyone else would ever do that. I think that was a brilliant call by Samoa Joe. Usually, they would just go and try to redo the move. They would beat down Aries, like, with punches and whatnot, trying to keep him on the table, while Low Ki would climb back up. That's the spot you normally would see in this case. And
that's exactly what Low Ki was trying to do as he ran back.
But for Joe just to take it over, I thought it was fantastic. So it really showed how great Samoa Joe is in the ring. But at the same time, it really started to make me sad. I'm counting the days now. Like, every match we get closer to be Samoa Joe's final match in TNA, and that makes this so excruciatingly hard to do because he does things just like that. And he has such, like, just the Aries versus Joe match and that feud altogether is just so wonderful. So to be this closer to a defined ending, is really hard to sit through.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing that I wanted to note was Bram this week. Bram, I thought, continued to be very good. I don't know. It's like he broke up what was the British boot camp match this week, which I'm okay with, just because I don't know much about these two guys anyways. So having Bram take over, I thought was fitting, because it gave him the heel heat, with the live crowd. And it just continued to show how good he was both on the mic and in the ring. So yeah, overall, I think Bram continues to entertain and be a top guy for me.
Yeah, for sure. Bram was absolutely magnificent. I do hope we get to see those two guys back, or at least Noam Dar, because he's a very interesting competitor to watch.
Yeah.
And you could see it just in that little glimpse where he actually made Rampage look up at the ceiling for some misdirection. That's something that's been missing from mainstream wrestling for a while.
Yeah, and I want to say there was if you want to see these guys wrestle, they have been on Explosion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean there are some good matches shown on Explosion. Unfortunately, we have to search YouTube for them, but yeah, some good stuff there. Okay, so what didn't work? My main beef about this week was the way the main event ended. Just the fact that once again we got another screwy finish. We didn't get a clean win for either Lashley or MVP, and that's really disappointing me. I want to see MVP win on his own merits, or I want to see Lashley win on his own merits. This back and forth screwy finishes, EY getting involved, BDC getting involved. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, at this point, how are they not geared up in crash suits and helmets? This happens so freaking often. It's even with the suspension of disbelief that you prepare for wrestling as a whole. There's only so much you can accept before it just gets incredibly ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I did appreciate that Angle didn't show up. That Angle let whatever was going to happen to Lashley. So I thought that was a nice piece to the story. So I mean, on one hand, I do appreciate where it's going, but just the fact that we keep seeing the same thing over and over again, I'm tired of it. I want something, different. But really, that was my only main negative about the show. What about you? Anything you didn't like?
I didn't like commentary. Not necessarily the quality of commentary during matches, but just the fact that commentary didn't seem to have any idea what was going on going into a match. The main event, they called it a no DQ match, but Low Ki was ejected, and no kind of hardcore shenanigans went on when the ref was actually watching. The only time we saw anything introduced was when EY ran in with a chair after Stifler got knocked down.
Right.
And the mixed tag match, the whole distinction that was being made by commentary between a mixed tag match and an intergender tag match, and the one they decided on wasn't the one that actually happened.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. We had a similar conversation after Lockdown with how Lockdown was presented by Taz. Specifically how he would give us different rule sets depending on the match when it was the same match. So yeah, I don't know. There does seem to be a little bit of miscommunication. Maybe, when they have gimmick matches like this, it needs to be stated what that rule is. I think Taz is depending too much on historical context, what he's used to versus what is actually going to be taking place.
Yeah, those two need a program for when they record commentary as opposed to just reacting to what they're seeing.
All right, so grades. I know we talked about grades. You don't like giving them, but let's give them. What would you say this week was? I think you had it at a A- last week.
Yeah, I'm going to drop it down to a B. It was still a pretty solid show overall. I enjoyed the vast majority of it, but those two things that we brought up between the screwy finish and commentary not having a clue, that was a big hit for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in the B range. I'm gonna go from a B plus to a B. It's, that finish I'm just not a fan of. I want to see something different with the BDC. I want to see something different from Lashley. I mean, that seems to be Lashley's entire run as champion so far has been some kind of finish like this. Whether it's EY getting involved, BDC getting involved, or Bobby Roode now. So, I want to see something else. Again, I want to clarify, I do like Impact. I think it's a good show. I don't feel like I'm forced to watch, but again, it's just above average. They're not doing anything that's totally blowing my mind, but it's still entertaining. So, all right, we've got quite a few Ask FTW questions, but we went long, of course, because that's what we do. That's what we always do. But real quick, if you want to take part in this part of the conversation, you can send in topics and questions to questions@ftwpodcast.com. You can message us on Facebook, tweet us, leave us a review on Stitcher or iTunes, or even leave a voicemail at 313-444-FTW4. We want to hear from you guys. This one comes from Jav of Steel, and he predicts that Lockdown is going to be a pay-per-view next year. That this year's Lockdown was just a treat from TNA to their loyal fans because they wanted to start their partnership with Destination America in a big way. Do you agree with that idea that the only reason why we got Lockdown as a free show was just to make it feel like a bigger deal because they were on Destination America? Do you feel that's the case, that they are going to make it a pay-per-view next year, or do you think we're done with pay-per-views?
I think that is an overriding reason why Lockdown was just a special event. I can definitely see them making it a full-on pay-per-view again, simply due to the fact that they've got a network that's willing to support them properly. So yeah, I can definitely see pay-per-views being reintroduced next year.
I can't see pay-per-views being reintroduced. Special events, yeah, I think they should change how they're doing them though. Lockdown as your special event, fits very well. I'm okay with it. Just not how it was done. If it was done as a live pay-per-view, or I'm sorry, a live special event on Destination America, I think that would have just as much impact for the fans as it does on pay-per-view. I mean, going to pay-per-view would allow some of the fans that can't get Destination America to still see TNA in their big shows, but not Lockdown. I can't see Lockdown being one of the big two or big four or whatever you want to call it. I think I just don't think they do enough with it to make it mean that much.
Whether they do enough with it or not, that's still one of the last pay-per-views they retained.
Sure.
So.
Well, I mean, they pay-per-view, that's no. But the name, yeah. But they've also retained like Hardcore Justice, but they transitioned that.
Well, as a pay-per-view, barring this year, when they trimmed it down to 4 pay-per-views, Lockdown was one of the ones they kept.
That's true.
So it's obvious they consider that to be a major event.
I get you. No, you're right. All right. This week in TNA, we're going to see Drew Galloway speaking out, Kong versus Taryn Terell for the Knockouts Championship, Wolves versus Revolution for the tag team titles, and Angle versus Rude versus EY to determine the new number 1 contender because, I don't know, TNA's rankings don't matter and TNA knows it. So we're going to have a new number 1 contender named. Final thoughts before I head out, Nick.
Congratulations to TNA taking over Friday night social media. Apparently they're the number 4 most social show on Twitter, beating out the NHL and the NBA. So
that's awesome.
Big deal for them.
Yeah, I really wish I could take part in a live show on Friday. My schedule is just so bad for that, whatever reason. All right. So, my final thoughts, and we're gonna catch you guys on the other side, the FTW community. We're gonna do another edition of Fans Talk TNA Unlocked, some more Ask FTW questions over on the other side. But before we get over there, I just want to quick thank you to TNA Mecca for welcoming us into their community late last year. We knew our vibe and conversational style would fit the audience well, and we still believe that to this day. I mean, we're getting so many comments, as recently as yesterday. So we know we fit in pretty well. And just overall, the chance to put out a TNA specific, content was exciting to us because we knew it was fresh territory. There aren't many others doing the same thing. And like I said, the amount of feedback that we're getting through the site, YouTube, and through other social media methods continues to give us momentum and motivation to do this every week. Unfortunately, and I think some people caught the vibe in my last post over there, but unfortunately, TNA Mecca has decided to pull the plug on the partnership, and they did it on Thursday morning, right after we started receiving comments for episode 18. The first 18 episodes were very eye-opening because it gave us the confidence that there was a great community out there that followed and enjoyed TNA as much as we did. Despite TNA Mecca deciding to end their partnership with us, this conversation will continue. Nick and I are having a lot of fun sitting down once a week to talk some TNA with you, and we'll continue to do that on fanstalktna.com. We can't say for sure what TNA Mecca's expectations were for us, nor can we say for sure what we could or would have done differently if we knew. Our goals were always to do 2 things. Talk TNA because we enjoyed it, and make new friends who enjoyed talking about TNA with us. We've hit those goals every single week. So thank you. Don't forget, become a paid member of FTW Community by going to fanstalktna.com and clicking the big green button. Last week, we released 15 additional minutes of bonus TNA content, and it's all because of you guys. You have become an investor of the podcast, you have become our friend, and you have earned the top spot in our Unlocked rankings. And unlike Mike Tenay, we won't drop you for absolutely no reason. So thank you. Nick and I are going to hop on over right now, talk some more TNA with the FTW community. Thank you for listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, or however you listen. If you listen through a service that lets you leave ratings and reviews like Stitcher and iTunes, please give us all of your hearts and let people know that they should add us to their podcast queue. That's it. That's the week that was an Impact and what we're looking forward to this week. We want to hear what you guys have to say about this week's Impact. So if you are live tweeting, definitely include us in that conversation. We'll see you next week. All right, Beanbags is in the chat. Robert Carmichael, Blue Cactor. Hello, guys. How you guys doing?
Hey, guys.
Oh man. All right. So, Nick, how you doing? Was my thank you to TNA Mecca quality?
Yeah, I don't see how anybody can find a problem with it. I Probably would not have been as generous.
No. Yeah, so anyways, for the FTW community members, I don't know really what to say about everything. It was really out of nowhere, for sure. Give me 1 second, Nick.
All right.
Everyone in the live chat, we're gonna pop on over to some music for a few minutes before we prep for the next show. So give us a few. All right. So yeah, I don't really know, Nick, how to really explain what happened, because we don't know. I mean, it just seemed like out of the blue there was some, not necessarily arguments, but just like, we would pitch ideas, they would say no, and then we would follow up like, well, but no, really consider what we're saying, because this will be really cool, and then no. But